بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين أما بعد. وقال السهل ابن عبد الله التستري رحمه الله: لا يتطلع على عثرات الخلق إلا مخطئ ولا يهتك الستر ما اطلع عليه إلا ملعون. So he seems to talk a bit about akhlaq here, which all contributes towards good conduct with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as well, because that's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants good conduct with people. So what he says that only the mistaken one, only the slipping one, the one who's doing wrong, will be the one who will chance upon or will figure out people's wrongs. So almost in there what he's saying is that the person who keeps noticing the faults of others, unless you're a teacher or you're tarbiyah, murabbi, then you better notice that. But if you just keep noticing people's and you don't notice your own faults, he's saying is the one, it's the way he's saying it is, rather than saying that whoever finds out these things they're wrong, he's saying that it's only the wrong person that finds these things out. Then the commentator explains that he means that when you find, because sometimes you can't help knowing, somebody might bring it up or you might just obviously notice it. So he's saying what it actually means is that you try to find them out by using wrong means and spying, where you're looking out for these things, where you're trying to unearth these things and prod and pry and then find them out. That's wrong. But otherwise you can't help sometimes finding out things about others because they may be happening openly in your face. Then he says, once you do find out, it's only the mal'oon, which means the one who has la'na of Allah. And la'na of Allah means that the one who is cursed by Allah, which essentially means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stopped his rahmah from coming to that person. The one who is devoid of the mercy of Allah is the mal'oon usually. They don't have any kind of divine assistance. They're left to their own strategies and then they get consumed by the dunya and by the evils of the world and shaitan. So he's saying the mal'oon, only the mal'oon is the one who will remove the veil of what from what he found out and open it up to others. So he's saying that essentially even if you do find out something by hook or crook, then it's another sin to actually reveal it. And then he describes what la'na is, mal'oon. Right? What it is, he says, هِيَ الْبُعْدُ مِنَ اللَّهِ, is to become distant from Allah. وَالْمُبْعَدْ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ مَلْعُونٌ. So anybody who's distant from the mercy of Allah is the mal'oon. Shaitan is mal'oon because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to stop supporting him, stop assisting him, and essentially made him an outcast. So he's the biggest mal'oon. So we actually call him shaitan mal'oon. But then there's other people who have la'na as well. And then he says that it's al-bu'd here refers to ib'ad and not bu'd itself, which means that he's been made purposely far because of what he's done. And the only thing that person can, in that state, can do then is to hope that Allah restarts to shower him with his mercy. Now he goes back to the general relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is what Sahl ibn Abdullah says. He says, أول شيء التوبة ثم الأدب فمن أدب نفسه صلحت له توبته. He interlinks them. The first thing is tawbah. The first thing is to come back to Allah, is to return to Allah, realize I'm far from Allah, I want to get back to Allah. And then after that have adab. Now what exactly the adab is, we'll understand. He says whoever does adab of himself, whoever does discipline himself, his tawbah is valid. It's interesting how he links these concepts up together because they are intertwined. He said that first you do tawbah, then you have adab, and whoever gets his adab right, then his tawbah is right. Because that, you could say, is the completing factor of tawbah. That's why Abdur-Rahman, the commentator, says What he means is a person should discipline themselves, because when you make tawbah and you come back to Allah, how long are you going to stay close to Allah? If you're not disciplined, you'll easily drift away again. Whenever we commit a sin, just see it as we're on the right, we're close to Allah, on the middle path. Every time we do a sin, we've drifted away. Get back on track. But he's saying that if you don't get your adab right and your discipline right, you'll continue to keep drifting away. So what's the point of that? When you get an alignment done of your car so that you stay on the right, so your car doesn't keep swerving left and right. Stop getting distracted. Don't take each exit as it comes along. So he's saying that you're going to have to do tarbiyah of yourself and discipline yourself through riyada, ala al-ju'i, by practicing hunger. This doesn't mean hunger and you don't eat anything. It just means eat less than what you're used to doing, unless you already eat less, which is the minority. Number 2, sleep less. So don't indulge too much. And number 3, khalwa, which means have more solitude. Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahmatullah alayhi, in Maulana Masihullah Sahib's book, which we've produced, called The Path to Perfection, he essentially reduces all spiritual exercises down to 4 things. Taqlilu ta'am, reducing your food, reducing your speech, reducing your sleep, and reducing your meeting with others. It's never complete abandonment of these things, because we need to do these things. They're all necessary at a certain level. It's just removing. Then he says another one is tawadu. Develop some humility. Wal mihna. And I guess mihna here, what would that mean? Mihna usually means go through trials. So probably deal with the trials that come. Wa tarkil intisari lin nafs. That's what he's saying. He said, don't defend yourself all the time. Don't be defensive all the time. You can make mistakes. وَإِخْرَاجِ الْحَقِّ مِنْهَا, and fulfill your debts. Fulfill your rights that are due on others. And he says, you better give up whatever is due upon you. Make sure you fulfill every right which is upon you. Because mainly what we do is we try to get what is due to us, but we dilly-dally in what is due from us. So that's what he says. Now, the next point Imam Sahal mentioned, this is really interesting. It's actually it's something which the modern world hasn't understood, but there's a number of Muslims who are now pointing in this direction. There's a book that was published in America a few years ago. It's about the heart. I forget what it's called. Mikael Smith wrote it. Maulana Mikael Smith. He studied in Buffalo, and he teaches at, I think, a madrasa in America called Al-Qalam, or I don't know what it's called. I think it's called Al-Qalam. He wrote this book. It's a really interesting book. That what is intelligence? So there's a discussion about what intelligence is. And in the Western idea, intelligence is purely intellectual intelligence. And then they've added things like emotional intelligence. But for Muslims, what is missing, for people, what is missing, and which Muslims has, is spiritual intelligence. So they're saying that intelligence is a package. It's not just raw mental intelligence and intellectual intelligence that you can just work out a calculus, or you can just work things out in formulas. There's an emotional aspect of intelligence, that how do you channel your emotions in the right way and where you should have them, and also spiritual intelligence, which has got to do with the heart. Right? So that's why he says, Al-ma'rifatu ma'rifatul iman, wal-aqlu aqlul iman, wal-yaqinu yaqilul iman, wal-ruhu ruhul iman, wal-hayatu hayatul iman. Now we know that all of these aspects are important. Ma'rifah is important, which is knowing Allah. Aql is important. I mean, we need aql, right? To even understand Allah, we need aql. And yaqeen is important. Ruh is important. And hayat is important. But all of these things can be misled and focused elsewhere, and everything else take the time. So he's saying that the real ma'rifah is ma'rifah of iman. And the real aql is the one that is guided within the lights of iman. Then if your intellect is guided by your iman, then your intellect benefits you in this world and in the hereafter. Yaqeen. If you have conviction, it better be on iman, because you could have convictions on the wrong things. That's misplaced. And again, your ruh, which is supposed to be a good aspect of you, better be focused on iman and not be overtaken by the nafs to focus on the wrong direction. And likewise, then eventually your whole life has to be iman. And then I'll have to discuss this next time, but he says, وَالسَّادِسُ هُوَ الْعَبْدُ. The sixth one is the servant, which could refer to just pure servitude of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَيْسَ الْحَيَاةُ الْعُمُرُ. He says your life, he said life of iman. He said your life isn't just the years you live. For us, life is the years you live. The clock is ticking. That's how many times you got. That's just the vessel. That's just the container. So he's saying it's what you really fill in that container. إِنَّمَا الْحَيَاةُ مَنْ أُعْتِيَ هَذِهِ الْخِصَالِ. The real life is the one who's been given all of these characteristics. وَمَنْ لَمْ يُعْتِهَا. Whoever's not given it, then while you're in the container, but you are mayyit, فَهُوَ مَيِّتٌ, he says. You're really dead, because what's the point of it? Because, yes, you're going to die maybe in 20 years or 50 years, but eventually after that it's going to be hellfire, so it's just, you might as well be dead. So, you're dead now, you're dead later, it's the same thing, because what really matters is the hereafter. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enliven our life, give it life and vigor and hayatan tayyiba, and we can only ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but that's what He wants us to ask Him, so we hope that He will give it to us. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen.